Okay. Well, hello. I see there's plenty of attendees. Thank you for showing up. I'm going to leave a few seconds for people to join in. I see familiar names and new names, so I'm very excited to speak with you. And I'm going to share a little bit about how the webinar is going to go. I'm going to try to make it short, meaning that we're going to go quite fast with the information. I tend to speak fast, so let me know if it's too fast. But the idea is that I'm going to go in 20 minutes of slides to give you basically a little summary of this. And then we'll go in 10 minutes of Q&A or any longer time that needs to be. But I want to make sure that people have time to have lunch or go back to doing whatever their work is taking them or life. So the idea is to do, again, a 20 minutes short slide. I'm going to share with you why recruiters want you to see you love your job. And so we're going to go into that. I'm going to wait one more minute, and there is a chat, so feel free to send questions in the chat room. It's easy, and I'm happy to connect with you. And again, I'm seeing more names and people, some people I know and very much care for, so that's very nice of you to join in. And if you hear some noise, I'm in New York City, so yes, it's the joy, the music background of New York City is some little sirens. And it used to bother me, but I did a switch, I think, a year ago, deciding that each time I would hear a siren, it would be a reminder for me to take a deep breath and breathe again. So each time I hear a siren, I take a deep breath, and it's pretty good. So let's dive in, and I'm going to share my screen. Again, I wanted to give a quick hello to those of you who I don't know. So thank you for joining me on this conversation. I'm a recruiter for 15 years. And so I've been also in banking and running a food startup, but here you're coming here for my expertise in recruiting and specialty in fashion and luxury industry. And I have had my own practice for 8 years. So I work with my own clients, and I've worked with big names, smaller brands, a lot of international brands, because I'm originally French and I've been 20 years in the US. And basically accumulated, I've had over 5,000 interviews of candidates. And that is the part that you're interested in, because when I interview, I basically get in my flow. I'm very excited about meeting talent. I'm really interested in understanding what triggers them, how they're good at, what makes them successful. And so I love spotting a good candidate. So that's why I'm doing this. And just a little background. So like many companies, Sur Mesure shifted during the spring. So when searches slowed down and, I started receiving a lot of resumes from candidates, I decided to launch a weekly Zoom on career strategy for executives. So this is basically group coaching that I've been doing since March. And it's been extremely rewarding because it has been a co-creation of a class. So it's part, learning how to interview, learning how to manage your career, but also part networking. And we had 24 people who graduated in this summer, and we have a new group that started yesterday of quite a few people that I'm very excited to see grow. And what I'm sharing with you is, as a recruiter, what I want to see in a candidate, and especially in these current times, why it's very important for you to, work on your message, your storytelling, your narrative, you name it as you want, but it's important that it's clear and precise. So let's dive in. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. So Those of you who know me, who are on the webinar, this is one of my favorite quote, and I think it's very important because it summarizes in a few words what interviewing is. And Maya Angelou says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And in an interview, sometimes you might forget the skills or something that was said. You might forget, what you did with an interview, but you will never forget that impression somebody made on you. So that is the basis. So this is the evolution of recruiting. So I've been a recruiter for more than 15 years. And in this 15 years, and during these 15 years, I've basically gone through 3 stages of recruiting. So when I started recruiting 15 years ago, basically we were just asked to find someone who could do the job. So finding the right skills. It was pre-LinkedIn, or LinkedIn was very, very small. And so you had to really be a good researcher. You had to go after the candidates. You had to find, you had to have a database. It was really tedious actually to manage everybody's resumes and location and phones and everything. But that was really what we were hired to do, someone who can do the job. And the big challenge for candidates was really right of finding, a job that paid maybe a bit better, or, that was in a company that they preferred. After 2008, there was a big shift, and it was something that was very prominent in the fashion industry. And it was really hiring somebody who was a brand ambassador. So fashion companies decided that it was very important that people not only can do the job, but they look the part. And it was the days where, brands wanted to see somebody. I remember working, I'm not going to name the name, but they wanted somebody who looked good in skinny jeans. And, that person was on the wholesale side, not front-facing candidates or clients, but they wanted somebody who can really, fit in there and be an ambassador for their brand. And what has happened in the past, I want to say 4 or 5 years, there was a big push. Some people say, it's the millennials who came in and started, but there was a big push for purpose. And what we are looking for now is somebody who shares similar values. And that is very important. So it's called hiring for a believer. And that is very important because it means, I'm doing a easy, joke, but it's like, I can't put a vegetarian person at McDonald's, right? So what you want to be is have your values aligned with those of the companies as most as possible. Ideally, you want somebody who is also living your brand. So for example, if you're working at Lululemon, ideally you're doing exercise, and that's part also of a big part of your life. So what I'm sharing with you is that there's been an evolution in recruiting. So it's not only important when you go to an interview to share your skills, right? It's also important to have a certain storytelling to discuss about your cultural fit, but also, your values. So in this article that maybe brought you to this webinar is what I call the airport test. And the airport test is a test that happens in interviewing. And basically, when we interview, there's a saying that we hire for skills and we fire for fit. So people are hired for their skill set, right, for what they know how to do. But they're fired or let go because of the way they do it, right? So what is very important when you recruit, specifically in the fashion and luxury industry, so I don't know necessarily how prevalent it is in other industries, but basically what is important is to find that cultural fit, right? So the airport test is essentially the cultural fit. Do I want to spend time outside or beyond the office with that person? And that is essentially, if you were stuck in an airport and your flight was delayed, would you want to spend 4 hours with that person in an airport where really there's nothing to do? So of course, that was a pre-COVID test. Maybe not, it's not an airport anymore because we don't travel or don't travel as much, but you get the idea. Can you be stuck with someone for 4 hours doing nothing, having nothing to do, and be comfortable? And the idea is that you can find the skills for a company, but often, it's a whole culture in the company, and people operate in a certain modality, and it's fitting in that culture that we want to make sure you are aligned. Because today, right, it's very important that you feel that you are in the right space, in the right environment. So I'm going to add a little piece of my forehead, but it's the right environment for you, because this is the environment where you will thrive, right? So the airport test is, do I want to spend time with this person beyond the office? Positivity. So that's a big part. It comes from, you know, what people project and the possibilities that are offered if we were to work with that person, right? So if you have somebody who says, what do you do? You know, I do accounting and that's it. And, you know, there's no, well, it doesn't feel like you want to spend time. You might need that skill to your team and add that skill to your team. But what you would like in ideal is somebody who can bring also awareness of how they work with the team. I might be in accounting, but maybe I'm really good at communication or team building. And I'll make sure that, you know, everybody who has expense reports, they feel at ease working with me so that we get those expense reports done very quickly and it's not a bottleneck for your company, for example. So I'm in recruiting. It's not only for me finding the talent, it's me understanding the culture of the company, and also telling you that because I'm still learning and I'm devouring articles on brands, that I'm still looking at stores and visiting stores to understand a company, to see how they function, that I keep learning. So I take you on the journey of the possibility of the future me that is still learning, right? And the airport test is one of the add-ons that I do, is the listening. So what I always look for in an interview is how the person listens. And I'll give you at the end my, you know, my suggestion to learn to listen. But the idea is to see if the person is in their mind trying to fit, you know, the questions I'm asking, or if the person is really listening with an open mindset. If that person is really taking on the information and ideally, you know, listening to what my needs are, listening to what pain point they can solve for me, and not having a solution that is cookie cutter that they're delivering at every second. So that's the airport test. So people will say, you know, oh, recruiting is a big part of psychology, and it's true. Unfortunately, it's also, you know, human nature. So that's why it's something that you have to look in a wider spectrum. So psychology today says that the less information you have about a person, the more similarity affects liking, right? So the idea is when you meet a total stranger and you have nothing in common, you actually don't have, you know, a trust with them. So to build trust is to share things that you have in common. And all of a sudden, if you have things in common, that's how you connect with people and you can build bridges to create a stronger relationship. So let's say, so this morning I was speaking to a candidate and she has children who are the same age as mine. So, you know, there's going to college application. And in 2 seconds, we kind of bonded on, you know, the parenting of being parenting of kids who are going through college application. So nothing much more. You know, when I was speaking 2 days ago and this candidate was mentioning meditation, and that's a big part of my morning routine. So we shared immediately, and immediately we had a connection with each other. So the more you can find similarities with the person, the easier it is to start building a bridge. And also, I'll share also a little quick tip is the more you get onto situations that are personal, physical, that trigger memories, the more you will go into the long-term memory of that person. So which is very important when you're, for example, meeting HR and they're seeing 15 resumes with the same background, right? You want to be remembered. So as a recruiter, there's a big moment that I listen is the moment that people start the conversation, those famous 3 first minutes. And it's the small talk. And I find that in the power of small talk, there is a lot of information that I'm getting from candidates. So I encourage you to skip the cliche, talking about the weather. But see if you can share a hobby or a sport or something that will allow you to build those bridges to trust with somebody, right? So for example, if somebody says, how are you? Some of the most common answers I get, believe it or not, is, oh my God, I can't believe, I was stuck in the subway. That was the old days where people were all commuting. Oh, I was stuck in the subways. Or, oh my God, thank God it's Friday. This week was so exhausting. Or I'll have, it's so cold or it's raining, and you're spending the first 2-3 minutes throwing some negative topic onto your listener. So anytime you have started a conversation and somebody says, how are you? Or how was your day? You can always interject one of those bridges, like, I'm great after, I had this morning run, or I had, my morning meditation. I spent 10 minutes saying, or I'm great. I, recently finished an online course that I started a month ago and I'm feeling very proud of myself, or, have a sense of accomplishment. And this is a great way in that first question of how are you to interject something that you want to building bridges. Also, in the power of small talk, I find that it's very interesting when people respond, and they try to get you into the conversation. So one of the great ways is asking about a recent company news. So if you're going to an interview, if you know the name of the company you're interviewing, it's great. But if you don't, let's say you're interviewing in the fashion industry, you can say, how do you find the Tiffany LVMH deal that is falling apart? What is your take on that one? To connect with somebody on a industry topic or on a company topic, or, so I put an Instagram contest because I think the day I was writing, this company was doing an Instagram contest that was really interesting. So, finding a way to discuss about the company or the position you're looking at. Just checking in on, so we have, okay, so this is a very interesting. So PQ and CQ over IQ. So this is this journalist from the New York Times, that his name escaped me. It's Paul, and it's coming back. I should put his name actually, who says, I look for PQ and CQ anytime over IQ. So PQ is the passion quotient, right? What part of your work are you passionate about? And CQ is the curiosity quotient. And what are you curious to know about the company? So PQ and CQ are two very important parts in an interview. Passion, it shows, what your energy level, what is your drive? It doesn't have to be said in, like, oh my God, I'm very passionate about whatnot. No, you can say something very slowly, but, I'm passionate about building teams. I'm passionate about my candidates. I'm passionate about, the product we're sharing. And curiosity is knowing that you have a growth mindset. So maybe some of you have heard about the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset, but curiosity is saying, okay, what's next? What is happening in other companies outside of my own company, right? In our competitors, in the market. So showing passion and showing curiosity. Curiosity is especially important today because things are shifting very drastically and you have to keep abreast of the new. So that's a big part of it. So this is an interesting rule. It's part of the art of negotiation. I think his name is Chris Voss in the master class. And it's a very famous study that was done in the early 70s by a UCLA professor called Albert Mehrabian. And he came out with this 7-38-55 rule that has been contested and et cetera. But the idea is pretty simple. Basically, only 7% of of what your listener is going to remember is content. It's very unfortunate for me that only 7% of this webinar will be the words, but 38% of the time it's the vocal and the tone. So the way I, explain it to my children is if I say, I love you, what do they hear? So that is aligning tone and content and body language. So you can see if somebody is saying, I'm very honest with you, and they're like keeping like this, I'm very honest with you, these are signs that there's a contradiction between body language and the content. But, being relaxed, being confident, being present, all these are body language which convey your message as much as actually the words you use. So it's a fun rule, and it's very used in the art of negotiation. You can check it out on Masterclass. So what I want you to know is, as a recruiter, there's a few red flags that we raise. One of them is a red flag when I see that a candidate is not showing the same energy for his personal passion or hobbies and for his work time. So the idea that I'm saying is, all of a sudden, I have a conversation about somebody's experience, somebody's work. They're sharing with me, their past 10 years, and it's very monotone and it's very boring, and, they don't get excited about work. And then we talk about sports, and they get excited about the last, tennis match, or they get excited about their run. And here I see a disconnect. So I see that somebody is not, interested and passionate about their work. And I cannot place a candidate, I cannot even present a candidate that is not having energy or a sense of passion to my client. And believe it or not, when I place an executive, I sometimes, and more than I would like to, hear from HR saying, there was really a nice candidate. He looks like he can do the job, but he was really not seem very eager. He didn't seem very passionate about, us, about the job. He was very monotone in his level. And we know he wants to leave the company, that maybe it's not aligned, but, we didn't feel that passion in him. And that's where I will share later, but, aligning your interest for your future work with also your interest for your current work, even if you want to leave it, even if the company is not ideal, there must be something in your current work, in your past, experience, that you can share with passion, that makes it show that you are aligned with the values, that you are in a role doing what you're supposed to do and what you're liking. So these are the three little things that you can consider when you speak. And this works for an interview, but please use it, when you speak to an acquaintance about jobs, when you speak to your friends about work, is, invest a little bit in the time or be a bit conscious about the small talk you do before an interview, right? Be genuinely enthusiastic about at least 2 or 3 areas of your current or past role. You might have left a horrible boss, in a company that's not doing a great product, but maybe your colleagues were amazing. Maybe they had an amazing, website. Maybe they had an amazing way to communicate with their clients. Whatever it is, there should be a few things that you got excited. That's why that energy is the energy that recruiters and HR want you to see, bring into their company. And listening when it's time to listen, and responding when it's time to respond. So this is something where taking a little time to listen at whatever is said is a way to build trust. Because when you listen, you are validating the person who's talking, that what they're saying is interesting. And again, in psychology, if you make me feel interesting, then I'm going to be interested in you. So it's quite, an automatic response, but like human response. So taking the time to listen and not giving that answer that you necessarily prepared, and to throw it. So these are the few things that I want you to consider. And I'm ending on this note. I shared this with the group yesterday. What we understand, we trust, and we recommend what we find positive. So it's very important that you understand that where you're going to interviews, where you are having a conversation with an acquaintance, if they understand you, they trust you, and they will only recommend, they will share, through their network, your background, your expertise, etc., if they find you positive, right? Nobody recommends a bad dentist or, horrible experience. Oh, I really went to this, I don't know, spa or gym and it was horrible. You should go. No, right? It never happens. So this is the way where what I want you to think is when you do small talk, that positivity, that conversation, it all transpires to the recruiter. So I think we're done. So I wanted to open up for questions, and I went a little bit overboard, but I'm here. I have the time, and if there's any questions you want to discuss, feel free to reach out to me also on LinkedIn. I'm going to ask Charlotte if you're there to put maybe my LinkedIn. If we're not connected yet, please connect with me. And I'd be very excited to hear what you're doing and how you're interviewing. As I said, I'm very interested in hearing about what's happening in the market, how candidates are finding their way to interviews. And I think it's very important right now to create momentum. So, okay, so I'm having this first question. Can you expand more on how you recruit believers? Yes. So believers are candidates who are aligned with the values of the companies. So I can give you an example. When you know the culture of your client, when you know how they function, how the team works, etc., when you know a bit their culture, you find the soft skills, meaning the specific cultural, the way people do their work, and you try to align those. So let's say, for example, I'm recruiting for Ralph Lauren, right? Which is a very classic American brand, which is very controlled. Their image is very controlled. They have specific colors, and they're on a path. And let's say I'm recruiting for a fashion company that's a startup, that's an up and coming designer, or, they're in the DTC market, or et cetera. So these could be my two clients, right? If I have a candidate that is very innovative, that is in the gaming industry, for example, has the hobby of gaming. If I have somebody who's very innovative and forward thinking, avant-gardist, I'm not going to put that person at Ralph Lauren, right? I'm going to put them in the startup environment, because that is the environment where they're going to thrive, where that culture is going to fit their culture. So again, if I have somebody who's really into sports and wellness, that's the kind of company that I would put, the kind of candidate that I would put at a Lululemon or at a Nike, or, where their current expertise is going to be valued. They're going to find some kinship. And we don't want to be a uniform, culture, but you have to have some sort of interest in going in that company. I'm reading, so I get, how long should small talk last? Okay, so it's up to you. I think that what is very important when you go to a meeting is that you have an awareness of how much the person you are meeting, how much time the person has, right? So let's say you have an interview. You're in Zoom, you have an interview. And you can ask the interviewer, let's say you have a Zoom, thank you for taking the time to speak with me. Can I ask you how much time we have so that I have time to plan our conversation. Basically, if you were only to have 20 minutes with that person, what you want is to have this quick small talk, maybe 2-3 minutes, not about the weather, but where you can share something about you, and then go maximum in three minutes of your time and your accomplishments. So that's going to be for another webinar, but basically if you're asked, tell me about yourself, you should be able to share what you do and where you're going and some of your accomplishments in less than 3 minutes. So that's what we do in the career course. In the clarity is being able to do that, because you want to have the rest of the time to understand what the recruiter or the HR, what this position that they're looking for is trying to solve, right? How they're going to measure success. What is like the pain point they're trying to solve? Why did the person before left? And what is missing? What is the accomplishment they're trying to do? So you want to save, if you had only 20 minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes of small talk, just, share something fun about yourself or that you care. 3 minutes about you and your achievements, and then be able to have a conversation where you exchange, what is it, what is the main qualities, or what is, how are you going to measure success for this role in 1 year, for example? What are the stepping stones you want to have accomplished in the next 6 months? What is your challenge in recruiting for this position? How can I make it easier, or how would I, it be easy for me to come in and help you solve those issues. So that's the really the essence of the response, the timing. How to reach out to recruiters for hidden jobs. So that's a great question. I'm going to share with you a fact. Recruiters have only 5 to 10% of the job openings. So the rest is basically, this was a study in 2016, the rest is maybe 35 or 40% of those searches are done by application, and the rest is networking. So it's actually a survey that I found, because that's going to be the topic of next week's webinar, why you don't need to go through a search or searching for your next position alone, and how to have a little bit of help around you, whether it's a mentor, whether it's a coach, whether it's a group that you join, but you don't have to be looking for your next endeavor by yourself, because it's a very lonely process. So it can be daunting, and it can make you feel isolated. So the ways I always suggest, you can approach recruiters, but they're not your best allies in this search. Your best allies are the weakest link into your network. So if you have a chance, I don't know, Charlotte, if we can add the link from last 2 weeks ago's webinar, which was on diversifying your network. Basically, that is where you have the most interesting leads, not your current network that knows you, knows who you are, and most likely the same information they know, and not so not your current, but the way of expanding to a new network. So let me share. So what we do in the group coaching is we put a number of people together that go through the same exercise for 1 month. In that way, the idea is that they get to know each other, they get to work together on career strategy. They have careers in very different places. So we have one person who's at BCG, we have one person who's in high-end jewelry, we have a person who's in fashion, well, a few people in fashion, but in retail, in design. We have one who's in hospitality, we have one who's in wellness. So all these different people are different, have different networks. And this is where little by little you can tap in and create those bridges of trust between people. So that's the way you start, spreading and creating out of a new selection of people, ambassadors for yourself. right? So for example, all the people around me, right, that I know that I'm a recruiter in the luxury and the fashion industry, and international brands, right? So I'm a recruiter, I do fashion and luxury, and I'm in international. Everybody around me that I've known for years, they know that. What I'm interested in is maybe among you, there's one person that is not in the fashion industry, but there's a lifestyle industry. Maybe they're just selling, I don't know, surfboards, right? Which is not my area, but technically I could do the job. And let's say that that person is going to tell, you know, their friend who has a surfboard company, I don't know where I'm thinking about surfboards, but in New York, but, you know, hey, you know, I listened to a webinar, and this woman who's a recruiter in the fashion and luxury and does international brands, you might be interested in joining her. So it's very precise information. And this is a tapping into a new network. So recruiters are a great source of access, but they might not be working on a search that is relevant to you. And that might let you feel, you know, like not as interesting to them. Applying online can feel daunting because, you know, there's one post on LinkedIn and all of a sudden there's 300 applications on it. So the idea is to saying, okay, between LinkedIn and between recruiters, what is that space? All these people that are my network that I can connect with. And you're already connecting with your current network. So the idea is showing that plus second degree or third degree connection so that you start spreading the information. But you can't spread anything. You have to spread something that is very precise because, as I say, or I believe, you know, pre-COVID, we had the attention span of 8 seconds, which is 2 seconds more than a goldfish. Post-COVID, most people, well, me, I have the attention span of below a goldfish, meaning that it's 4 seconds. So your audience is very short on time, very short on energy, and very short on concentration, right? So that's what happened during that situation. So you have to be very precise and very positive in the information you share. So that's the way you can get, you know, people feeling that they can trust you and wanting to recommend because they felt, you know, that you were positive in your exchange. So I want to be cognizant of time. It's 1:38, and I want to thank you for your questions. I, you know, invite you to the next one, which is going to be in 2 weeks. Charlotte is going to be sharing more information, but you can just go on my website and sign on the mailing list. And we'll send you the next webinar, and they're free and they're fun. I mean, I hope. So leave a comment if they're not fun, or if you wanted something else and something more, send me a message on LinkedIn, and I'll be happy to shift and share more information that you might be interested in the next session. Okay, and again, all the information is on the website, and I want to wish you all, yes, the next webinar is October 8th, and the registration will open soon, and you'll receive an email. So yes, it's feeling supported in your job search, and why I truly believe that if you're looking for a job or if you're looking for your next role, you don't have to do that alone. You can do it with a coach, a mentor, you know, friends, but you have to make sure that you kind of officialize that group and that it supports you. Right? So on that note, happy Tuesday, and thank you for being there. I'm extremely grateful for all your questions and for your presence, and please connect on LinkedIn with me. Bye.